Hi friends, Chris here. Welcome back to The Helm. We're glad you docked with us. Today we're going to be checking for stowaway pirates in our thinking to find out if we might actually be naughty leaders. Now, most leaders will give themselves a good grade when the assignment calls for their ability to be fair and just in the workplace, but so many times that pirate bias actually casts a wider net than we realize. In our recent Power in the Lunch Hour, we briefly covered a list of biases that are so important to recognize in the workplace that I wanted to bring a few of them over here to The Helm for everybody. So let's dive into common biases you might see in the workplace with some examples. First up is the anchoring bias, and that happens when we rely on the first piece of information we actually encounter. An example of anchoring bias is when we hand out disciplinary action based on the first bit of evidence that we get instead of doing a thorough investigation. Next up is the affinity bias, where preference is given for similar personalities, looks, or backgrounds, often leading to unconscious favoritism. An example of affinity bias often shows up when we're hiring because we want to surround ourselves with like-minded people. So we will hire someone who thinks like us or who might even look like us. Next up is the status quo bias, and that's preferring not to rock the boat and staying in a certain course of action. In my opinion, the status quo bias is the worst mindset a leader can have because that leads us to say things like, that's not how we've always done it, or we'll keep ineffective processes or practices because that's how we've always done it. Next up is cultural bias and stereotyping, and that's when we hold on to assumptions about different cultural backgrounds leading to unfair treatment. An example of stereotyping is assuming that just because someone dresses a certain way means they might act a certain way. Next up are two of my favorites, the halo and the horn effects. The halo effect is forming an overall positive impression based on one positive trait, overlooking the flaws and weaknesses, which also happens when we fall in love. An example of the halo effect is potentially thinking that a candidate's overly friendly personality would make them a great fit for any job that we have open. The halo effect's polar opposite, the horn effect, is forming an overall negative impression based on one negative trait, overlooking strengths and contributions. An example of the horn effect is maybe when we've had one bad interaction with a coworker, we end up labeling them as hard to work with. And last up, we didn't actually cover in Power in the Lunch Hour, but it's very important to recognize, is the desirability bias. And that's the tendency to present oneself in a more favorable light than they really are. An example of desirability bias shows up when a leader might downplay a mistake for fear of being seen as incompetent or incapable. When we as leaders let these biases navigate our behaviors in the workplace, we're essentially closing the door on a psychologically safe space for our team members. A psychologically safe workplace looks like one where employees feel comfortable speaking up, sharing ideas, both good and bad, without fear of punishment or judgment, and they feel a good sense of open communication and deep trust in their leadership. A psychologically safe workplace is great for your retention because your employees will feel really excited about opportunities to learn and grow. While this isn't a comprehensive list of all the biases that can be found in the workplace, it's a great place to start and for us to self-reflect and learn more about our leadership styles. So let's not be naughty leaders. Make those pirate biases walk the plank. Okay, yes, I went there. We hope you found some value in this information, and we'd love to hear more about it in the comments below. Please be sure to give us a like, and you can also check out our other services on our website, cscnavigation.com. I look forward to selling with you again. Until then, fair winds, my friends. Don't be naughty leaders.